Hello students, it's Nazia Begum here, your physics lecturer, welcoming you all in today's lecture. In our previous lecture, we were discussing about the adiabatic process, and in that process, we were studying the relationship between different thermodynamic variables. Okay, and we have derived the relationship between pressure and volume, and we got this relationship P into V to the power gamma equals to K, where gamma is the ratio between Cp and Cv. Now today we will discuss relationship between P and T. Okay, so from the first relation PV gamma equals to K, okay, first relation we got PV gamma equals to K, but we know that for an ideal gas PV equals to RT. So from there we can get value of V equals to RT upon P. Now this value of V we will put here, so we get this equation P into RT upon P gamma, RT upon P whole power gamma equals to K. Now when we open the bracket and solve it, we will get P 1 minus gamma, P to the power 1 minus gamma into T to the power gamma equals to K upon R gamma. Now how we got this? See here what is written, P into RT upon P to the power gamma equals to K. If we open this bracket, we get P to the power 1, R to the power gamma, T to the power gamma upon P to the power gamma equals to K. Okay, here we have P to the power 1, here we have P to the power gamma. So if we are having one formula that if A to the power n upon A to the power m, so we get A to the power n minus m. Okay, this formula we have. So for P what we will get? P to the power 1 minus gamma. For T we have power gamma, and R to the power gamma when we transport right hand side, so that R to the power gamma will come in denominator. So we have this equation finally. Okay, and K upon R to the power gamma equals to another constant, because K is a constant, R itself is a constant. So basically this ratio is a constant. Okay, so finally we have this relationship between P and T. P to the power 1 minus gamma into T to the power gamma equals to constant. This is the relationship between P and T in adiabatic process. Now let's move to the relationship between V and T, volume and temperature. Okay, again we know that PV equals to RT for ideal gas. So P equals to RT upon V. Now we will put that value of P here. Okay, sorry, that value of P here in adiabatic process equation. So we will get RT upon V into V to the power gamma equals to K. When we solve this, we will get T V to the power gamma minus 1 equals to K upon R, which is again another constant. So finally between T and V we get this relation, T into V to the power gamma minus 1 equals to constant. One thing you must notice that when we were deriving the equation, between P and T, we have put value of V in the first relation, that is the relation between PV. Okay, and when we were deriving the relation between V and T, then we have put the value of P. That means if we are deriving the relation between temperature and pressure, we have to put value of volume. When we are deriving the relation between temperature and volume, that time we have to put the value of pressure. Okay, so by doing that we will get the relationship between V and T. So these were the relationship between different thermodynamic variables in adiabatic process. Now let's discuss work done during an adiabatic process. So adiabatic process means where no exchange of heat is there, that means the temperature will surely increase. So that's why you can see the variables here. The initial variables are P1 V1 T1, okay, and final variables are P2 V2 T2. So here you can see not only pressure and volume, but the temperature is also changing. In isothermal process, temperature was not changing, but in adiabatic process the temperature will change, because here no exchange of heat will be there, so obviously the temperature of the system will change. So here consider n moles of an ideal gas contained in a cylinder of cross-sectional area A with insulating walls and provided with a frictionless insulating piston as shown in figure. Okay, so small work done here by the pressure will be given by dW equals to PdV. This we have already derived so many times. Now if we want to find out the total work done in changing the volume from V1 to V2, actually here we are moving the piston, and by moving the piston we are changing the volume. This thing we have discussed already in isothermal process case. So we are changing the volume, that's why we will integrate the small work from V1 to V2. In order to get the total work done, we will integrate the small work done from volume V1 to volume V2. Okay, so finally for total work we have this equation, W equals to integration V1 to V2 PdV. Then for adiabatic process we know the relationship between P and V is PV gamma equals to K, or we can write P equals to K V to the power minus gamma. Now we are putting that value of P in Works equation. So we get this equation here. Okay, this equation we will get K V to the power minus gamma KV dV. Now K is a constant, it will come out, and when we integrate V to the power minus gamma with respect to dV, we get this equation. How we will get this? Let me explain you. See, if we are integrating x to the power n with respect to x, so that time we have the formula x to the power n plus 1 upon n plus 1. This is the general equation for integration. If we are integrating x to the power n, so we will get x to the power n plus 1 upon n plus 1. Now here we are integrating v to the power minus gamma. Okay, we are integrating it with respect to dv. So here we will get v to the power minus gamma plus 1 upon minus gamma plus 1. So this minus gamma plus 1 in denominator is written there as 1 minus gamma, which is also correct. Okay, so like this we have got this value here, this value here. Okay, K into V to the power minus gamma plus 1 upon 1 minus gamma, and limits we are having V1 to V2. So this thing we have got simply from the integration formula, this one, V to the power minus gamma plus 1 upon 1 minus gamma. From integrations formula we got this. Now we will put upper limit minus lower limit formula. So for that what we do, this denominator 1 minus gamma, this we will take out as common. Then in place of V, first we put V2 minus, again in place of V we put V1. Okay, upper limit minus lower limit, so that we will have this formula. Okay, now we will multiply K inside. Okay, so here we have KV 1 minus gamma, sorry, KV1 1 minus gamma, KV2 1 minus gamma. Now substituting for K, okay, in place of K we will put P1 V1 gamma and P2 V2 gamma. K is a constant, okay, and we know that pressure into volume to the power gamma equals to a constant. So in place of this K we are putting this value, okay, P1 V1 gamma and P2 V2 gamma. When we put there in place of K, so we get this equation. Now in this equation we are having V1 to the power gamma into V1 to the power 1 minus gamma. Okay, and because they are in multiplication form, so the power will be simply added up. So when we add it, we will get gamma plus 1 minus gamma. So gamma gamma will get cancelled, and in power we will have only 1. Okay, so here when we solve the power of V, we will get only V1 to the power 1. Similarly here when we solve the power for V2, we get simply V2. Okay, so we have 1 upon gamma minus 1, P1 V1 minus P2 V2. Now from ideal gas equation, P1 V1 equals to nRT1 and P2 V2 equals to nRT2. So when we put that value in this equation, okay, we will put the value of P1 V1 and P2 V2 and we take nR as common. So we finally have this formula for work. W equals to nR upon gamma minus 1 into T1 minus T2. Now here obviously the work depends on the difference between the two temperatures. If T1 is greater than T2, so that time work will be more than more than 0. That means expansion will be there. But if we have T1 is less than T2, so that time work will be less than 0. So we will have adiabatic compression. Okay, so we have discussed about isothermal process and adiabatic process. Now the third one is isobaric process. Okay, the process in which the pressure remains constant is called isobaric process. In such a process, both the heat transferred and the work done are non-zero. That means there must be some transfer of heat, there must be some amount of work done, okay, in the system. That is isobaric process. Then we have second law of thermodynamics. So, as explained earlier, the first law of thermodynamics is an extension of the principle of conservation of energy as applied to a thermodynamic system, but it is having so many limitations. Okay, so because of that limitations, uh, we we have so many processes which obey the first law but are never observed. For example, it is possible to convert work completely into heat, but in practice it is impossible to convert heat completely into work without affecting the change in the surrounding. Okay, this thing you all can understand, like whenever we are rubbing our palms with against each other, so that time heat is generated there. So we have done work in rubbing our palm, and because of that work the heat is produced there. Okay, but whenever we are giving heat to any machine or to any object, so it is not necessary that whatever heat we are giving, that heat is completely used for doing work. No, it is not true. Some amount of heat changes in some other form, whether it is in form of sound or light or radiation, etc., anything. But all the heat whatever we are giving as input, that can completely not be converted into work. There is no such machine till now which can completely convert heat into work. Okay, that is not possible practically. So this shows that there is some additional basic principle which disallow many phenomena or processes given by first law of thermodynamics. Okay, so we can conclude that the first law does not tell us a the extent to which heat energy can be converted into mechanical energy. Okay, as we have already discussed that heat energy can completely not be converted into work. So what amount of energy can be converted into work, that is not clear by first law. Second, about the condition under which heat can be converted into mechanical energy, that means this first law is not telling us about the extent to which heat energy can be converted into work, as well as it is not telling us about the situation also, that under which condition or which situation the heat will be converted into work. But second law of thermodynamics attempts to resolve these limitations. So second law of thermodynamics, there is two statement for that. First is Kelvin Planck statement. So what Kelvin and Planck said, They said that it is impossible to construct a heat engine which produces no other effect than absorbing heat from a reservoir and completely converting it into work. Okay, and practically it is applicable. We can see in our daily life that whatever thing we are using, if we are giving heat to that device, okay, or that machine, that heat is completely not converted into work. Okay, in other word, it must reject some heat to the sink. Okay, when we are saying it must reject some heat to sink, so that means we are saying that some amount of heat will get wasted in some any other form. So a perfect heat engine eta equals to 1 is not possible. That means efficiency of any engine cannot be 1. Okay, efficiency means output upon input. So output and input can never be equal. So that's why efficiency can never be 1. It will always be less than 1. Okay, whatever amount of input we are giving, some same amount of output we will never get. We will always get output less than input, and that's why numerator will be less than denominator in eta. Okay, eta equals to output upon input. Output is less than input, that means numerator is less than denominator. So that's why the efficiency of engine is always less than 1. So perfect heat engine is not possible. It is only ideal concept, it is not possible. Then Clausius statement. What Clausius said? It is impossible to construct a self-acting machine unaided by an external agency which produces no other effect than extracting heat from a body at lower temperature and transferring it to another body at high temperature. Okay, so Clausius is also saying the same thing, that there is no machine which without any external agency, which without any external force can convert whole amount of heat into work. This statement denies the possibility of a perfect refrigerator as well. It will not work if no external work is done. Now, what is significance of second law of thermodynamics? See, here 2 points are there to show the significance. First, second law tells us that the efficiency of a heat engine can never be made unity. That means it can never be 100%, and which is obviously practical. Okay, it is true. Second, the coefficient of performance of a refrigerator can never be infinite, and that is also true. Now, limitation of second law. It is applicable only to cyclic process where the system returns to its initial state after a cycle. Okay, so only cyclic process we can study under this law. Second, the law cannot be proved directly, but no machine is designed contradicting this law. So there is no proof of second law, but because there is no contradiction, no machine till now has been made whose efficiency is 100%. That's why we can say that yes, second law is true. Okay, but a proper proof of second law is not there, but because it has been not denied till now, that's why we say that it is true. So this was all about second law, and in next lecture we will discuss about reversible and irreversible processes. So this is it for today's lecture. See you in next lecture. Till then, goodbye, take care, do some productive work, and the most important thing, be healthy, be safe.